This is Sigmund Bloom here with the Week 16 preview part one and the Audible. Cecil Lammy's on assignment, so flying solo today. And ironically, it is Denver starting us off. It is a Denver show. Denver at the Chargers. This game has already, a lot of rematches this week. This one already happened. It was 23-16 Chargers. Denver really needs this game because they have Cincinnati and Kansas City the next 2 weeks. If they lose this one, they're in danger of missing the playoffs. Maybe Cincinnati could get in over them. Chargers have New England and Las Vegas, so they have a little more margin of error. Not going to be a great offensive game. Cecil's already opined this is going to be a defensive battle, a street fight, not an offensive show. So for Denver, you're looking at Cortland Sutton probably as the one player we can rely on. You get to watch Nix, watch Marvin Mims, watch Audric Estime, see what we're watching for the future if you're watching this game on Thursday night, but not players you want to rely on, although the Chargers defense did get run ragged by Tampa Bay last week. We'll see if Sean Payton can find anything that he can take advantage of there. On the Chargers side, Lad McConkey should be in your lineup. We'll see if he trends towards another game time decision. Hopefully he doesn't, and that should give us even more confidence to play him. If you're going to play somebody other than him in the passing game, Stone Smart is actually the guy here. Look for 3 or 4 catches from him, 40, 50 yards. Maybe a touchdown. Cecil always reminds us Denver has trouble covering the tight end. Also, in the first matchup, Kamani Vidal had a touchdown on a wheel route. Not that you're going to play Vidal. It was actually a big J.K. Dobbins game, I guess, as a deep what the heck flex desperation play. You could look at Vidal or Edwards, since the running game did have a good game against Denver in the first matchup. Turn the page to Saturday football. So make sure your lineups are set when we look at the Houston at Kansas City game. This one may be less interesting in terms of range of outcomes now that it looks like Patrick Mahomes is ready to play. Of course, Nico Collins is going to be in your lineup here. Tank Dell, this is one of those situations where in fantasy football, one of the mistakes I find I make the most is continuously betting on a trend to reverse. The trend is Tank Dell's not coming through in the deep passing game. He and CJ Stroud. Interesting mirror image here of Patrick Mahomes and Xavier Worthy. So we're going to watch the Joe Mixon practice reports. We're going to probably play Mixon no matter what, even though you wouldn't be shocked if he had a floor game here. It'll be interesting to see if Dameon Pierce does more. Also, the Texans are basically locked into either the 3 or 4 seed, and there's an argument that the 3 seed's more advantageous than the 4 seed, but they're not going to win in the playoffs without a healthy Joe Mixon. So they're going to know more internally than we do about this situation. And speaking of the playoffs, this game, they play Baltimore next week. They're going to find out where they match up, how they can maybe put together a game plan to hang with these teams. Kansas City still needs to keep winning to keep ahead of Buffalo for that number 1 seed. Looks like Patrick Mahomes is going to play. Some people might say he exaggerated the severity of his injury. Some people might say that he just seems to be a fast healer or made different. But with poor tackle play and Will Anderson and Donnell Hunter, you don't want to leave him hung out to dry. If you're Andy Reid, I expect extremely conservative. Already a conservative offense, even more conservative. You're not going to play either running back after it looked like Kareem Hunt, Isaiah Pacheco were a true committee last week. Could you play Xavier Worthy? You would think that getting his speed in play, stretching the field horizontally, getting a lot of design touches, wide receiver screens, jet sweeps, passes out to the flat like the one that scored last week. That could be the situation here. So Xavier Worthy's probably a wide receiver 3 flex this week. Bigger question, do you play Travis Kelce? With all hands on deck except Hollywood Brown and maybe Hollywood Brown. We're going to watch for that. There's just not a lot of targets concentrated on Kelce. He did have that run whenever the passing game was depleted after Rashee Rice went down, where he was a really strong play. Now, I'm not even sure he's the best tight end play in this offense, as Noah Gray is leading it in touchdown passes. So we're probably just staying away from everybody in this passing game other than Xavier Worthy. Saturday afternoon game. Not exactly a barn burner in terms of offense, but interesting game with 2 potential teams that could play again, or at the very least teams we're going to watch in the playoffs. Turn the page to the second game on Saturday. Pittsburgh at Baltimore. This one is potentially a division title game. It is for the Steelers if they can win it. And if they lose it, problemos, as they may be headed for a wild card game, maybe going to the Houston Texans. So first game, 18-16, Steelers, a courageous defensive performance, holding Lamar Jackson down as they often do, only able to muster field goals. You're not supposed to be able to win when you just kick field goals, but that was enough. Is George Pickens going to be back? Didn't practice. First practice of the week. Not looking good. And look, much like the Joe Mixon calculus, Steelers, whether they're a division winner, whether they're a wild card, if they don't have a healthy George Pickens, they can't win. This offense is one of the worst in the league when George Pickens isn't out there. So if he's not 100%, or if they don't feel comfortable putting him out there, then they should hold him back, even if it means losing the division or greatly increasing the chances of that. So who are we looking on this offense that we want to play in this game? Ravens pass defense isn't as bad of a matchup. At least they're not playing as bad as they've been as good. We're not playing Russell Wilson. We're not playing Calvin Austin. Maybe as a deep what the heck flex. I suppose if the Ravens jump out to a lead, you're looking at some garbage time here for Calvin Austin, and Pat Freiermuth has been coming on in fantasy. So depending on your other tight end options, you may consider him. But this is just a typical Steelers arc where the offense was limited. It looked like it was coming alive. Now it's very limited, and they're going to have to win with grit. TJ Watt hopefully will be healthy enough to play after he got banged up last week. And we'll see if they can hang around and win ugly the way they did in the first matchup. Lamar Jackson, a pretty passer, a maestro last week with 5 touchdown passes. So, yeah, you're looking at, say, Flowers in your lineup. Rashad Bateman is a high ceiling what the heck flex here. You've got Mark Andrews, now the all-time Ravens touchdown leader. Actually, in the first matchup, Isaiah Likely had 4 for 75. So if you have to dig deep for a tight end, Isaiah Likely could be a player the Steelers lose track of. You have Derrick Henry. The Steelers can match intensity with Derrick Henry. That was part of the first game, how the Steelers were able to win that game. Derrick Henry, maybe not as impactful as he's been. He's going to be in your lineup. Won't be surprising if it's the second straight week that he has a floor game, as now we get to the Sunday games, and we have a full slate. Early games. Let's start out with the Giants at Atlanta. Wow, did this game become a lot more interesting since we were pondering it on Monday. On the Giants side, uh, the schedule works out so that because they have better matchups than Vegas, and because it comes down to strength of schedule, I think if both teams lose out, the Giants would pick in second. Either way, most people have 2 franchise quarterbacks in this class coming up. Doesn't matter. Is it going to be Tommy DeVito? Is it going to be Tim Boyle? Is it going to be Drew Lock? Doesn't matter. Atlanta's defense is coming on. They've got some teeth now, or talons, as it might be. And you want to look at the Atlanta defense as an option this week in your playoff matchups. I suppose if you have Malik Neighbors, you're rooting for Tim Boyle. Tim Boyle was able to get him the ball kind of downfield. Now we have another team with running back by committee. Even though it was about 75% of the snaps for Tyrone Tracy, 2 out of the 3 goal-to-go touches went to Devin Singletary, who scored on one of them. So Tracy, just a mere what-the-heck flex, and not a great one. Now the Atlanta side. Woo! Michael Penix. And some might argue that this move could have been made earlier. Certainly, you had a team showing us with their game plan, running so often on 1st and 10 that they don't feel like their quarterback has it. Doesn't look like he has it. Don't expect a Michael Penix-centric game plan, though. I expect still, because it's the Giants, Bijan Robinson to touch the ball 25 times, and Tyler Allgeier's what the heck flex, probably getting 10 to 15 carries, maybe the carries to close out the game in the second half. But Michael Penix being out there should help you feel better about playing Darnell Mooney after his goose egg, because we know that Michael Penix is an aggressive downfield passer. We know that Michael Penix will push the limits of the defense and harness the talent he has on offense. Remember, Jalen Polk, Roma Dunze, not quite living up to year 1 expectations. Jalen McMillan starting to. More on that in part 2 when we preview Tampa Bay and Dallas. I think we can say comfortably, though, that Michael Penix raised the level of that Washington offense. So even Kyle Pitts, depending on your other options, we could see more downfield passing. And Atlanta has the element of surprise here, as there's no pro tape really except for preseason for the Giants, who are a dead team walking, to use to prepare for Penix. That should give this team a real shot in the arm. And remember, even if this team doesn't come back to take the division from Tampa Bay, Tampa controls their own destiny. If they can win this game, Atlanta beat Washington next week. If Atlanta wins out, there's a very good chance that they will be a wild card over Jaden Daniels, which sounds kind of sad, But if it's the Michael Penix Falcons, almost as interesting a story, maybe as interesting a story as the Jaden Daniels Washington Commanders. We look ahead to Sunday. And what other games, maybe games that don't have the twist like the Giants Atlanta game had, but we will have a twist as the Detroit Lions have to play outdoors and rematch against the Chicago Bears. This game was 23-20 on Thanksgiving. We all probably can remember it. A game where the Lions jumped out to a lead and Caleb Williams clawed back in the second half and all but one should have had a chance to win, should have had a chance to play in overtime. We all know what happened there as really the air has come out of the balloon for the Bears since then. But for the Lions, the interesting question here is they're playing outdoors in Chicago. It's just going to be cold. It's not going to be windy. It's not going to be precipitation, at least as of Wednesday morning when I'm recording this. Do you play Jared Goff? And I think that it's tough. And you can look at your matchup and see, do you need upside or floor? How many points does pass touchdowns count for? Are there bonuses for 300 passing yards? Are there bonuses for long touchdowns? These are all things that should play into this, as it wouldn't be shocking if Jared Goff has not quite a floor game, but certainly not a ceiling game, especially with the Chicago Bears offense, not exactly forcing opposing offenses to open up and take risks to pile up points and yards the way that the Bills did for the Lions last week. If there's one good argument to play Jared Goff this week, it's no David Montgomery. Now, they're going to give Jahmyr Gibbs as much as he can handle. I don't see how you project anybody but Jahmyr Gibbs as the number one running back in fantasy football this week and really next week too. So potentially a league winner there. There's no way you're benching Amon-Ra St. Brown. Sam Laporta only had 6 yards and 3 catches in the first matchup, but for 2 touchdowns. He's hot coming into this one too. He's got to be in your lineup. A little bit tougher with Jameson Williams, one of the many wide receivers who could have 1 for 13 or 2 for 25 or 4 for 100 and a touchdown this week. But you like him better, say, than Tank Dell, maybe even better than Xavier Worthy if you're in a 0.5 PPR or non-PPR league. And then there's Tim Patrick, who scored 3 touchdowns in the last 2 weeks. Certainly, if you have to go deep as a what the heck flex, it seems like Jared Goff looks his way in the red zone. Do the Bears have enough pride? See what I did there? The pride of Lions. Do the Bears, what do they call a group of Bears anyway? Not a good football team. That's what I'm calling the Bears right now, one of the worst football teams in the league. But the Detroit defense is disintegrating before our very eyes. So at least in 2 quarterback superflex leagues, that gives Caleb Williams some appeal, gives DeAndre Swift some appeal. Probably in your lineup is at least a flex just because of the way he's been breaking long touchdown runs earlier in the year. DJ Moore, getting him more involved, a la prime Deebo Samuel out of the backfield. So he's in your lineup with a lot of volume, especially in PPR leagues. That's going to help you. Keenan Allen has done enough lately that he's probably at least in your lineup as a what the heck flex here. It's Rome Dunze that is the tougher call as Caleb Williams and the deep balls. They're trying to get the ball deep to Rome Dunze, but very rarely is it working. Bears have a chance to play spoiler here as the Lions very easily could lose the division, lose the number 1 seed if they slip up at any point for the rest of the way. Looking at the early slate, we also have Arizona traveling east to play Carolina, a very mercurial, a very enigmatic Carolina team, and a very enigmatic Arizona offense. Or is it enigmatic this week? How many times can I say enigmatic? That's enough. Kyler Murray, not a great fantasy play this week. Really, he only ends up being a good play this week if Bryce Young is a good play, or if the Cardinals, if Drew Petzing comes out with a pass first game plan. But the Panthers have been so poor against the run lately, and James Conner looks so good. And James Conner looked good in December last year. James Conner saving the best for last. James Conner could be a league winner, certainly in this matchup. Trey McBride, they got to get him a touchdown. Last week they did, I think, an inside little shovel pass, tried to push him in, tush push brotherly shove style. Didn't quite work. They're going to get him a touchdown. Trey McBride helping lead you further into the fantasy playoffs. Marvin Harrison Jr., he's not going to face Christian Gonzalez this week. Might see a lot of J.C. Horn. Horn isn't quite the shutdown corner we thought he would be coming into the league, but Marvin Harrison Jr., just throw him in that bucket with those guys. Again, Tank Dell, Xavier Worthy, Jameson Williams, boom, bust, wide receiver 3 flex type plays. If Carolina can't keep this one close, and they didn't really keep it close against Dallas last week, then probably not a great week to play Marvin Harrison Jr. In your 2 quarterback super flex leagues, it may be a good week for Bryce Young, although Arizona has been playing very well on defense. So probably not a bounce back game for him. Chuba Hubbard should be in your lineup as at least a flex. Probably not a bounce back game for him. Jalen Coker, put him in the bucket with all of these boom bust wide receivers. And maybe Warmer coming in with 83-yard touchdown last week. And against Arizona, if Arizona can build a lead in the second half, there's some garbage time possibilities there. Adam Thielen is a safe wide receiver 3 flex in PPR leagues. But Jalen Coker coming on is helping him hurting Adam Thielen's ceiling. Thielen had those ceiling games when Coker was sidelined, although Xavier Legette likely out for this one with a groin injury. So that could help Thielen. It's just which Bryce Young, which offense are we going to get? Bryce Young moving the ball at times last week, some costly turnovers. No Micah Parsons for Arizona on this side. So maybe the Arizona pass rush isn't going to be quite as fierce. We look at a great matchup of veteran quarterbacks when we go to New Jersey. Rams going to the Jets. Rams are in the driver's seat for the division now. Wow. Do you remember when Cooper Kupp was going to get traded? Well, he's not traded, and he's probably going to be in your week 16 lineup, even coming off of a goose egg. It's just going to be cold. Another game where winter weather, just cold, not windy, no precipitation in the forecast. Check back in on Sunday. But obviously, Puka Nacua is in. Puka Nacua, top 5 wide receiver going forward. And Puka Nacua wasn't a bust in that slop fest, the Rams and the 49ers, that got us underway in week 15. Kyron Williams, okay, 29 carries a game in December. All right, well, do what you do. Do you, Sean McVay? Kyron Williams in your lineup. Just Blake Corum, you may have to come to the white phone. Aaron Rodgers playing opened up fun, just enjoying football. That's good for Devontae Adams. Maybe good for Garrett Wilson, who was frustrated on the sidelines. There's no way you're benching Garrett Wilson because he has that ceiling game potential, but it was Devontae Adams, the week winner last week. Breece Hall, got to watch practice reports. Hopefully that knee is feeling better. He did get the game-winning touchdown to save you last week, but didn't look that impressive against the Jags. We'll see against the Rams. Certainly, this is a beatable Rams defense. So chances are, if you're looking at Breece Hall, you're at least try to shoehorn him in your lineup as at least a flex, especially if he can keep getting full practices in. Last game, week 16 preview, part 1. Philadelphia goes to Washington. Another rematch, divisional game, 26-18 Philadelphia in the first game. Now remember, this is when Jaden Daniels wasn't totally healthy. It was also a game when Saquon Barkley took over the game. On the Philadelphia side, is A.J. Brown okay? Is Saquon Barkley okay? Now, the Eagles are in contention for the number 1 seed, so they're not going to let up, but this looks like more of a Devontae Smith game, maybe a Jalen Hurts game, but who's he going to pass to if A.J. Brown's not 100%, if Saquon Barkley's not 100%? Kenneth Gainwell becomes a what the heck flex here, and it'll be interesting to see, assuming Barkley is healthy enough to play, whether they take a little bit off of Barkley's plate, put more on Gainwell's plate. Gainwell looked spry last week. Also, Grant Calcaterra, if you have to dig deep for a tight end, may get some more targets depending on the injury situations here. We're going to watch that one very closely. On the Washington side, with Jaden Daniels feeling better now, he's obviously not quite a top 5 quarterback, but certainly top 6, top 8. And unless you have one of those clear top 5 options, like Jalen Hurts on the other side of this matchup, Jaden Daniels should be in your lineup. In the first game, Terry McLaurin, first matchup between these teams, it was shut down. Again, Jaden Daniels wasn't healthy. Terry McLaurin could have had 4 touchdowns last week and 200 yards. So there's no way you're benching Terry McLaurin. And the first game was actually Austin Eckler with 8 catches for 89 yards. Austin Eckler's not going to play in this one. Could we see more passing out of the backfield? Brian Robinson. Could we see more Zach Ertz? Well, Zach Ertz suffered a concussion last week. Revenge game. Not really. I think Zach Ertz has a lot of really good memories of his time with the Eagles, and there's no revenge to have here. But it may be a very shorthanded passing game for Washington. As again, Washington, it's a tough game. Washington's probably going to have to win at least one more time to go to the playoffs. And that team that's chasing them, again, the Atlanta Falcons, coming up next week. Coming up tomorrow, part 2 of the week 16 preview with Cecil Lammy, who'll be back from his assignment. We've got On the Couch Wednesday, Matthew Friedman joining me, and we hope we can guide you through always to the next round of the playoffs, or at least that good feeling when we all share experience and we share it together. We love being together with you because you're so classy.